getting gas cylinders. Why is this possible on that scale? You know, what used to be done in lakhs, in hundreds of thousands, today is being done in hundreds of millions. And that digital public infrastructure, I would say to me, was the most powerful carry away, and one which I am convinced will actually end up shaping a very large part of the world. There are some other issues also. We discussed how, we would reform the World Bank. There were issues relating to women-led development. But the fact that we piled that agenda that high, I think made it very difficult for people to not cooperate. The second, honestly, was India's own weight. And I mean, when I say India's own weight, I mean, I ask you a question. There are G20 leaders in the room. Who is going to say no to Narendra Modi? It was as simple as that.
Thank you. Now let us go to some areas, global areas where the conflicts are taking place. So, Captain Atul Sinha.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Captain Atul Sinha, a naval captain of the Defence Management Course. Sir, I believe you are one of the most popular Union Minister for External Affairs of this country, and Indians resonate with your thoughts. Sir, I have two simple questions for you, sir. So the first one is, in the light of the prevailing India out sentiment expressed by Maldives, a similar inclination is evident with the opposition in Bangladesh. So how do you anticipate India addressing such adverse narrative within its own sphere of influence? And the second one is, so how do you think India should respond to the ongoing crisis in the Red Sea? Should we continue to provide outside support, or should we kinetically act like the USA or UK? Thank you, sir.
My response to the first question is, don't believe everything you read in the press. Second part of it is, trust Indian diplomacy. So, there will be, look, every country has problems in its neighborhood. It's never as good as they say it is, it's never as bad as they say it is. There will be problems. Our job is to anticipate, assess, respond. You know, at the end of the day, neighbors have relationships with each other. They find, they find understandings. It is in the nature of politics that there are sharp positions which are taken. Diplomacy does not always go by that sharp position. It says, okay, I hear you. You said something very strong. Now, why don't we sit down? Once you sit down, you'll say something less strong. I guarantee you that. So, our job is to look, hear it out, understand it, reason with people, find, something which works. Because at the end of the day, neighbors need each other. History and geography are very powerful forces. There is no escape from them. On your other question, Red Sea. You're a naval captain, so you know the importance of what I'm saying. The Indian Navy has deployed 10 ships today in that region. Because we got a double problem. We got a piracy problem and we've got a missile drone problem. If you look, even in the last few days, we actually, one of our ships, I think INS Vishakhapatnam, went in and extinguished a fire and rescued the crew of a tanker which had taken a drone hit. Today in the morning when I came in here, I saw that the Navy had rescued, it's interesting, we rescued Pakistani and Iranian fishermen from pirates. So, I feel today that India's greater capability and our own interests and our reputation today warrant that we actually help out in difficult situations. We will not be considered a responsible country if bad things are happening around our neighborhood and we say, I got nothing to do with this. You know, if you got nothing to do when neighborhood is in trouble, when you are in trouble, neighborhood will say the same. So we have actually in the last 10 years developed a very, I would say, powerful narrative. You know, it could be what is happening today through naval deployments in the Red Sea. Some of you will remember last year there was an earthquake in Turkey. You know, we were among our disaster response force went in very early. In many countries from Sri Lanka to Mozambique to, it's been sort of, and during COVID, it wasn't just the vaccines we gave. We actually sent out doctors, including military doctors, to many countries in the Indian Ocean. So that is where I make the connection with Ramayana. You know, I think a country like a king, a country also should have standards. There is a higher purpose. There is much punya that we earn. Believe me, people look at us much more warmly, much more friendly as a result of what we do. Now your question, should we do kinetic, etc. Look, some countries made that choice. At the moment, our choice today is by contributing to the safety and security. We are doing a lot of non-kinetic contributions out there, but independently, because at the end of the day, we are an independent country.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Again, sir, there are a lot of questions on the Israel-Palestine conflict. So
maybe you can ask somebody, one
yeah.
person.
So one person, can anyone? I will.
Read out the name.
Yeah, read out the name. Actually, he only asked. Captain only asked another question. Yeah. Atharva Patil.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is not to Israel-Palestine, but this is a good year for democracy. A lot of countries are going into elections this year. India, US, European Parliament. But there is a certain narrative of closing the economies down and getting the jobs back home. How do you think is going to affect the global trade? And what role can India play into this?
Two questions, not necessarily connected. Lot of countries are going to elections and countries are trying to bring jobs home, because that's happening to countries not going for elections as well. Okay. It's true. In fact, I think somebody, I remember at some other meeting telling me there's 60 plus countries going to elections this year. It's good. Elections are good. They give a chance, in any society to validate the quality of governance. So it is a chance for all of you, to actually decide where you want to go, who is best placed to lead you, whose vision you have faith in, what is the record, on which you would base your judgment. So I'm very, very confident all of you will make the right decision. Now, having said that, not every country, perhaps different countries have different, I would say, ways of conducting that exercise. The more I see the world, the more proud I am of our own electoral capabilities. Because, we argue like anything, every day is exciting in some political development, but one thing in this country, the day after the election, everybody accepts the result. Everybody honors that result. Nobody does, the kind of things we see now in other parts of the world. At least we are spared all that, and I think it's an enormous testament to the strength of our system today, that we have created a very credible democracy where each one of us, none of us would say that in any way our right to decide who should be the next government is compromised in any way. Your second part of the question, people bringing jobs home. That is true. Why is that happening? It is happening because for the last 30 years, in the name of globalization, jobs migrated to certain parts of the world. So, if you look today at how manufacturing is dispersed, because when people say jobs, primarily they are talking manufacturing jobs. There is an over-concentration in certain regions. That over-concentration has had two impacts. It has lowered wages, it has eroded quality of life, it has lost people jobs in many countries. That's had consequences. Secondly, it has made the rest of the world dependent on that over-concentrated center. Now, when COVID happened, we discovered, like many other countries in the world, we were 5 ministers. We were tasked with, we were part of a COVID group. How do we, every day we were meeting twice a day to assess what was happening. In the initial time, this was almost exactly 3 years ago. Okay? We are talking maybe February of 2020. We discovered that in this country, we were not making masks or in very small numbers. We had two companies who were making ventilators in small numbers. Even they were importing part of it. There was very little PPE production. So the basics of what we needed to respond to COVID was actually all coming from outside. And once COVID spread, the prices were jacked up. It was in short supply. And we actually found ourselves struggling to meet the very basic needs of our people. Now it's a different matter that thanks to the kind of, I would say, motivation from the top, actually Indian business, Indian society, Indian talent, creativity, ordinary Indians responded. And, if you look to me, the proof that we were, this term we use, Atmanirbhar Bharat. What we did in response to COVID was an enormous test of Atmanirbhar Bharat. That from virtually having very little, by the end of 2020 we were exporting the same stuff which we were importing. So it is today, we've got to accept that the current model of globalization is viewed by many countries, including developed countries, including Western countries, as being very unfair. It is being unfair because the core of that model is not market economics. That once the core production is no longer fair, then the entire system is feeling the impact of that. So one of the big debates today is how do we spread manufacturing across the world? How do we de-risk the global economy? How do we create more production centers? And for India, this is a big chance. It is a big chance because previous governments did not give enough importance to manufacturing. They did not create the infrastructure which was necessary to attract global capital and global production. Today that is changing. So, the example of Apple is something which resonates with global industry. That they also look to see, okay, let's seize one or two really big players, what is their India experience like? If their India experience is great, then others say, okay, if Apple can do it, I can also come. So I predict to you, the next 3-4 years, you are going to see a big chunk of the global semiconductor industry actually move to India. It will move to India today because it wants to de-risk. It is looking, already, I was in the US. The Semiconductor Industry Association in the US told us that American companies today employ engineers by the thousands, by the tens of thousands in India today as part of how to de-risk the semiconductor supply chain. So this is a big opportunity for us.
Thank you, sir.